confidence comes through competence. It's not just like this made up feeling per se. Yay! The Cult Career Girlies are back.
Hello.
And we have a new series. Oh my gosh. I need to stop feminizing our brand because we definitely serve like half and half male and female clients, which is hilarious. But the truth is we are girlies. So, and we are also back. That's the second fact. And the third fact is, yes, we do have a series that we are putting together for y'all. This being the first episode in which we are launching talking about interviews and how to effectively practice, prepare, and perform at your best. And we have learned quite a few things over the years, like a lot about what people talk about doing, don't actually do, or don't know to do, that if they did it, it would dramatically, like drama-atically, that was so stupid, enhance your interview performance and land you more jobs. So in this first episode, we wanted to talk about the one, in my mind, most simple thing that day in and day out, we see people not doing, that if you did, it would make all the difference. And that is create what I would call a matrix matching your experience and prepare an interview story example with every single point on the job description. If that sounds laborious, well, like it kind of is, but like if you don't do this, you're going to be at risk for being all over the place in your interview. And that means like real time and money lost, because I'm sure that you want a new job if you're searching for one sooner rather than later. And you've probably worked hard to be one of the few candidates filtered out and interviewed invited into the interview stage. So you've worked hard to get this opportunity. What is like 1 hour of your time or 2 hours or even 3 spent preparing to make sure that you make the most of it? Audrey, do you get the same sense that like a lot of people do prefer to kind of fly by the seat of their pants? Or at best, maybe just kind of like research a little bit about, scroll through the company's website, and then maybe come up with some examples of like core values and how I have the same ones. It's kind of sad because I just think it hurts your confidence and kind of has a hit on your professional identity when you have repeated experiences of allowing yourself to not be as prepared as you could possibly be. And it's like we talk about all the time, confidence comes through competence. It's not just like this made up feeling per se.
Right. And
My
then
2 cents
also,
anyway.
yeah, and it makes me think about actually, you know, when you maybe might be in an argument with someone or have some sort of confrontation and you walk away and you think maybe 10 seconds later or a minute later, oh my gosh, I should have said that. I think that happens so much when we're interviewing as well, when we decide to fly by the seat of our pants. And it's really, it's because we don't have the recall at the top of our mind, right? I'm thinking about a computer, which I don't know if I'm going to use all these terms correctly, but we're going to give it a go. And the RAM, like the RAM memory, is what is more easily accessible versus the archived memory or something like that. I hope that picture comes across to everybody listening. But when you just take an hour or so to dive into this, you're bringing all of these memories that you don't think about all the time. You're not constantly ruminating on the fact that you did this project at your job a year ago, and you might need to talk about it in an interview. I'm sure that is not at the top of your mind constantly. So when you actually work to just bring all of these things up to the surface, you are going to be so much more prepared, obviously, but then in a not so obvious way, you'll be prepared in the sense that you are just bringing all these kinds of memories back. So you might be in the interview and recall something that you wouldn't have otherwise, because obviously you wrote it down on the paper, but also because you just put yourself in that mind space and that headspace to be able to recall it. So I totally agree with you that we see a lot of people think that they can just get in there and recall everything in the moment. And I'm sure we could spend a long time really dissecting why people do that. But I would rather just talk about what you should be doing instead.
Good plan. Good plan. I, by the way, last thing, want to encourage people to know that at the end of this episode, you're going to get a special treat that ensures that you don't even have to rely on recall if you're kind of freaked out about, like, oh, will I forget to say something? So stay tuned for that. Here we go. Here's what to do. Open up. Step one. Open up a Google Doc. Are you ready? Or word processor of your choice. Okay? I don't care. That's fine. So open up a Google Doc, then create a table with 2 columns, and then add a bunch of rows. And then you take that 2-column table and you open up another tab with the job description, which, by the way, you were so good to remind me by way of actually reminding a client yesterday on one of our calls to always copy and paste the job description into your own like Notes app or Google Doc, because that will likely get taken down. And when you're in the interview preparation process, you want to have that information handy throughout every single stage up through the final round. And even as you're trying to counter the offer with a negotiation, it's helpful to have it handy. So copy and paste it, keep it for yourself. But as you're looking at the job description, very simply, I love how simple this tip is, but really it makes all the difference. Paste every single bullet point and even some of the summary section before it gets into the responsibilities and qualifications and whatnot. By the way, I would focus in this exercise on the responsibilities section of what you'll be doing in this job, because likely in terms of qualifications, you may not, depending on how they've formatted the job description, you may not have to answer to that too much in the interview. That's likely something that they've just factually checked on your resume. Like, do you have 3 years of work experience in this field? Do you have a bachelor's degree or whatever it is? So focus on get that responsibility section, easily paste each of the bullet points that they've provided in one of the rows on the left side of your column. And then on the right side, simply, mind-blowing moment, come up with, well, we'll actually give you some unique tips here, but just so you have context, basically come up with a star example interview response for how you have demonstrated that responsibility in the past and what you achieved as a result. Like, what was the impact? Time, money saved, number of people served, money made, huge project completed, new partnership formed, some kind of result. And if you go down the whole list and just fill out your whole little matrix, you are going to have you can technically, beyond the next 2 interviews that we're going to cover, if you've done this, you are already way ahead of most other candidates, because they're over there Googling commonly asked behavioral questions. And of course, we're going to do an episode on that. It is important. And then also kind of craft your unique selling statement of why you're the person for the job. That's also important. Obviously, also coming up with questions of what you're going to ask them at the end of the interview, important. But this one does not get airtime, and I think it should have a lot of airtime. So, Audrey, can you share more about an example of what you would put as your interview response, pairing that with one of the responsibilities in the job description?
Yes, absolutely. And like you mentioned, we're going to be using the STAR technique. And I know there are many people shaking in their boots right now because they are far too familiar with STAR and maybe haven't had
They're like
enough
delete
experience.
on sub.
Yeah. STAR does not get a good rep because it does take effort to put into doing the STAR method. But I actually want to make it a little bit easier for everyone. So you're welcome. But the STAR method, if you're not familiar, it's talking about the situation, the task, the action, and the result. And where people get tripped up with this, there's 2 places people get tripped up. with the star response, and that is that it can feel lengthy and, lengthy and unnatural. And then also task and action can feel very repetitive. And that's because we kind of think they are. So we're actually going to tell you to take tasks
So we're just going to drop.
And we're going to make it the SAR instead. So it's situation, action, results. And that way you kind of just kill two birds with one stone, and you're making it shorter, so it'll feel a little bit more natural. It'll be a little bit easier to get through the answer and to come up with them as well. And then also you're not being repetitive with the task and the action. So situation, action, result is your new method. SAR, of course, if you want to go for STAR, go for STAR. But to make it easier, let's stick with STAR moving forward through the rest of this episode. And
I don't
through your
think my
interview
brain
prep.
has not once ever in my life naturally generated an actual STAR response.
Yeah.
It's always been SAR, basically.
Right. And then I would get stuck on, oh no, I didn't say the task, and then I'm spiraling. So we're just going to take all of that out of the reality. Situation, action, result. So what that actually looks like, if you're looking at the job description, and if you're looking at a job description for something like a sales position, entry-level sales position, you're going to see right at the top, hit weekly KPIs for cold outreach over phone, email, and LinkedIn. That is guaranteed to be on every single sales entry job description, entry job, you know what I'm saying. So, and then KPIs exist in many jobs. But anyways, we're going to give you a specific example here, and you can, of course, apply it to the job that you are applying for. So that responsibility being hitting your weekly KPIs, what that could look like, especially if you're not coming from a sales background, if you're making a career pivot, you probably do have this experience in some way, shape, or form, given the fact that you had responsibilities in your past job or in your current job that you're pivoting out of. So that's really what a KPI is. It's a responsibility that you have weekly or monthly or quarterly, whatever it is. So an example of what that could be, if you're in something like corporate event planning and you're responsible for securing 15 sponsors for the upcoming event that's in, let's say, 3 months. So that would be the situation. You just explained that I work as a corporate, in the past I've worked as a corporate event planner for XYZ company, and I was put in charge of securing 15 sponsors over 3 months. And then you go into how did I do that? So I began by creating a plan for those 3 months to make sure that I hit those sponsors ahead of time. And throughout that 3 month span, I was testing different outreach methods and approaches, and testing which ones worked better and how they work better across different platforms and over the course of several weeks, and taking in all of that data to really understand where to best optimize my time and my abilities over the course of those 3 months to make sure that I did hit those 15 sponsors ahead of time. And by the end of it, I not only met the 15 sponsor goal, but I developed extremely efficient outreach methods and skills for reaching out to people, and then also the rapport building skills needed to make those immediate connections, which makes me extremely confident about doing that for your company, Mr. and Mrs. Interviewer. And boom, done, period, and stop.
Boom, that's it. Ta-da! So. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that example. And I really like to think of when I'm answering an interview question, which I still do technically all the time, because we're technically in some measure being interviewed as we're talking to prospective clients who want to be served by us. Also, you and I, like, we do speaking, I do podcasting guest interviews. People in my daily life are like, wait, what do you do? Like, how does that work? And in that, I know how to give a compelling answer. And still, when and that breaks down to, in my head, I like it to think of visual, like imagery. And so the setting or the situation in SAR is setting the stage. And I literally want them to be able in their mind to picture me in the scene. So, last April, I was sitting with my team and we realized we had a big event to plan and it was coming up soon and our budget was threatened. Okay. We needed some more corporate sponsors in, and we decided this is not happening without 15 more deals coming through. And so what I did was, and I just transitioned into action. And that was like so much more compelling and energetic and like storytelling vibey while also being efficient. Like I didn't go on forever. Than a lot of candidates being interviewed give their answers. So then when you go into, so what I did, you're using more direct language to like really orient people's minds and anchor them in a picture, because our subconscious mind thinks in sights, smells, and feelings. It does not actually store memories in words. And so just remember that and use more vivid imagery to really sink in. And you could also use body gestures, like the first thing I did was, or we all know it's really, well, if they're like watching the video, I realize this is a podcast and they can't see my body language. So I'm going to skip that point. And now I'm going to give you what I promised at the end of the interview. I was going to wrap up with how you can use this preparation matrix exercise to actually impress your interviewers more, build rapport right at the start, and make you look super organized, all while removing a need to remember things perfectly. Wait, did my lights just randomly come on? Okay.
They did. I noticed that.
Creepy. Okay. Electrician, where you at? Anyway, but how you could remove the need for recall and probably also alleviate a lot of interview anxiety around like, what if I just like totally blank? Is this? Come into the interview literally with your 2-column sheet printed out. And if it's a virtual interview or in person, like I'll give the example of if they're in person, they're just going to obviously see what you have on the desk. But either way, I would actually recommend that you grab your printed out matrix, let's call it, and start the interview with this. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really excited to dive into this conversation with you guys. I just want to let you know I really respect your time. And I know that as effective interviewers, you are going to need to make sure that every single person or that your winning candidate genuinely has all of the skills that you need, not just your wish list, but really your want list that you detailed in the job description. So that's why I've gone ahead and mapped out everything that you said you wanted in your next insert role title and mapped it not only to my experience, but I have a detailed story of exactly the results that I drove for my prior companies while I held that responsibility. So if you're curious, I have it right here. I might be referring to some of it to give you my absolute best examples and make sure that I don't miss a single detail that you would want to hear. And that is something that I've genuinely heard of people doing. And the guy that I heard of doing this, he definitely got the job at Amazon, and it was an impressive role that he was awarded, and they loved that he started. It was a virtual interview. He just like held it up and was like, hey, yeah, I respect y'all's time, so I already did all the work, and so that's what you're going to be seeing me look at. But it's because you want the best examples, and so do I. So I already did it. And that makes you look so organized, so on top of it. It's also a baller move. It takes, it's kind of like I'm taking control here of your experience and mine in this interview. So you're not in a total underling position while also not being too cocky. You are communicating respect for their time and communicating respect for mentioning you know exactly what they want. They want the best examples. They want detailed metrics for what you accomplished. So you have all of those right here. And that is such a baller way to start the interview and to not only by extension receive benefit from doing this exercise, but literally create a cool moment from the start. So that's all that we have for you today. We're so excited to continue to bring you really unique, impactful, tangible exercises that you can use to supercharge your interview performance and therefore change your life and career. So stick around and join in on next week's episode. Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To get an even more meaningful head start into your calling, head to thecalledcareer.com, where my fellow career coach Audrey and I have created a whole suite of free resources and tools to help you get clear and get a job today. For those who are definitely ready to land a job or start a business in the next 6 to 12 months, we're here to help you biblically and practically discern your calling through coaching, reflection, and deep market research. Identify the job that's aligned with it, even if you currently have no idea what you want. Rebrand your resume and LinkedIn to translate your background to appeal to your future boss. P.S. We take this off your plate and do this for you. Also, we'll teach you how to land referrals and get attention from leadership through networking. Again, if that makes you nervous, we have these emails and LinkedIn messages literally written for you so you don't have to sweat. We're also here to give you unlimited interview practice so you're prepared to address every elephant in the room and knock selling yourself out of the park. Then we'll round out with helping you negotiate your salary so you land thousands more. Just so you know, recent clients have gotten $8,000 to $50,000 salary increases, even though they were totally non-traditional candidates. That's because we specialize in helping non-traditional career pivoters land jobs they're ecstatic to serve in. It takes work, but we're here to see you through until the end, when we're celebrating that day that you send me an email in all caps and you say, Kelsey, I got the job. Then you could be on the podcast. But I'll be here until then, keeping you accountable and encouraged by meeting with you literally until you land the job you want, even if that's up to 6 months from now within our program. Apply to join at thecalledcareer.com, and I'll see you next week here at Answer the Call. Bye for now.